identifying and naming congruent triangles. All right, so this is for for each figure below, determine by using the markings if there's a pair of congruent triangles. If there is, name the congruence, meaning that we have to name it like triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EDC or EDF or something like that. That's how you name it. Oh, I lost my place. Name the congruence and give the property justifying the congruence. So there's a couple of properties, and we'll go over these on the side here. Note that the pairs of triangles are drawn as congruent, but they should not rely on how they were drawn in determining your answer. So meaning only use the markings to determine. So don't look at it and go, oh yeah, those look like congruent triangles. Make sure you're paying attention to the actual markings. Okay, so we have three different properties. Sorry, 4 different properties. So the first one is called side, side, side congruence property. And that says, if each side of one triangle is congruent to each side of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So that should be really easy for us to see. If we can see, and remember that the tick marks when we're going around, those are the congruent marks for the side. So if you can see, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit here to B. So I can see 1 tick mark to 1 tick mark, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. What that means is those sides are congruent to each other. So 1 to 1 would be congruent, 2 to 2 would be congruent, 3 to 3 would be congruent. Doesn't mean that they equal 1, 2, and 3. It just is a way to match them up. So this shows me that all 3 sides of the left triangle are congruent to all 3 sides of the right triangle. So I would click congruent. We have to make sure we type it in here, and I'll explain how to do that. And then down here, we would choose side, side, side. So in order to name the triangle, they're starting with G, H, I. So we kind of want to follow the tick marks. So GH goes from 2, and then I goes 3. So we want to go 2, 3, 1. And I'm looking at the tick marks when I say 2, 3, 1. So we want to do the same thing here. So we want to go across 2. We want to make sure we're going 2, 3, 1. You have to go in the same order because the angles correspond to each other. And when we put it in order, the letters in order correspond to each other. So if I go 2, 3, 1, like I did on this one, so I have 2, 3, 1, then I would go K, L, J, because that means K corresponds to G, L corresponds to H, J corresponds to I. And corresponding means that those are congruent parts. So as long as we put them in order, that's correct. Remember, this is really important. The order matters. All right, the second property here is side angle side congruence property. And with that one, and I don't have a whole lot of room to draw here because I put it on here. So if I have 2 triangles like this, I want to draw one that looks a little bit more congruent. All right, close-ish. We'll go with it. All right, we have 2 triangles, and we want to prove that they're congruent with side, angle, side. So this is literally listing the order you have to go. So I have a side, and I'm going to say this side is congruent. Angle, angle, side, like that. So I can go side, angle, side, side, angle, side. And they match up 1 tick mark to 1, 1 arc to 1 arc, 2 tick marks to 2 tick marks. And that's how you do, you show that angles are congruent. You use arcs. So you have 1 arc, and then if we had another angle, we'd have 2 arcs. If we had a third angle, we'd have 3 arcs. So it's just like the tick marks, they just do arcs for angles. So remember with this one, you're not skipping anything. You have to start on a side, then go to the angle, and then go to the very next side. So it's basically the angle being created. So the angle is my palms, and the 2 legs of the triangle are my hands. So this side, the angle, and this side have to be congruent in order to use side, angle, side. So now, if we look at the next one, we have angle, side, angle. So now I want to start at an angle. I'm going to start at the top here, angle, and I have 1 more arc. Side, I'm doing 1 tick mark on the side for each, and then I have 2 arcs for the angle, and I apologize, this is a really small triangle. I should have drawn these a little bigger, but I have angle, side, angle. So now I have 2 angles and the side that's in between them that's marked congruent. And again, I'm not looking at just the triangles. Do they look congruent? Maybe. But I need to look at the markings to determine if they're congruent. All right, the very last one we have here is angle, angle, side. So that one I start with an angle. I'm going to start with the bottom one here. And then I go to the next angle. So I'm actually skipping the side. So I go angle, angle, and then side. So this is the only one where you skip over something, except for side, side, side. You skip all the angles on that one. But for this one, you go angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. So I skip the first side in between the angles. And I go to the side right after it. It would also work if I had this side marked because I could just simply go this way. Angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. So either side would work as long as you have two angles and then the side that's not included. If the side that's included means in between. If the side that's included is marked as congruent, then that would be angle, side, angle. So it's still congruent, it's just a different congruence. So we really have to pay attention to the order of congruence here. All right, so I'm going to get rid of all these marks so that they're not on top of our words here. So let's go ahead and take a look because it's a little easier if we actually look at triangles in here. All right, so this first one we have, and they've started naming it for us, A, B, C. So we have A, B, C here, and we need to decide is it congruent over here to this right triangle. The triangle to the right. I don't mean a right triangle. Sorry, I said that funny. All right, so A, B, C. And what we want to do is figure out here. So I have an angle, another angle, and another angle. And then I have a side. So the angle in between, which we call the included angle, is not marked as congruent. But I can go angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side. So that is one of our congruencies. That was one we just went over. And with this one, you definitely want to write this down. These would be your notes. If I tried to write this down, I wouldn't have been able to fit in here because this write's too big. That's why I stole the print copy of it. But on your paper, you should be able to write much neater than I can on my little art program. All right, so we know it's angle, angle, side. I just said that. So now we have to make sure we put the congruence in here. So if I go A, B, C, so I'm going 2 arcs to none. So I'm looking at just the arcs here. So I'm going 2 arcs to no arcs to 1 arc. I'm going to follow that same pattern on the other side because that's the easiest way to identify this. So I go 2 arcs to no arcs to 1 arc. So I'm going to go D, F, E. D, F, E. All right. So the next one here, we're going to look at this and we're going to look at, we have an angle, a side, an angle, an angle. So I can see I have angle, side, angle. That's listed over here. Angle, side, angle. And remember for this one, because we're using the same words. This was angle, angle, side. This is angle, side, angle. So it has to do with which side it is. So this side is not in between the angles. It comes after the angles if I'm going around the triangle. This side is in between the 2 angles. So it's the side in between them. So it's angle, side, angle. So you're literally reading it. This is the order when you read it. So it's angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side. I know it sounds really, really close, but it has to do with where the side is located. So we have angle, side, angle at the bottom there. Now we have to write the congruence. So I'm going to look at, we have U, V, W. So I'm going to look at the arcs again because that's one of the easier ways to do it. So I have 1 arc to 2 arcs to no arcs. So I'm going to go 1 to 2 to none. So X, Z, Y. All right, one more. So this bottom one, I can see I have a side, an angle, and a side. So I have all the pieces I need for side, angle, side, but we need to make sure they're in the right order. So I have side, angle, side here. But if I come over here, I have side, angle. And if we say that backwards, it makes a bad word. When I always tell my students in class, if it makes a curse word, you can't use it. It's not one of the, because we also write them as SSS and SAS, ASA and AAS, but we never write ASS. So because this one doesn't, the angle's not in between the 2 sides here, it doesn't count as side, angle, side, because I can't go side, side, angle. So this one does not work. All right, let's check it. And we're good to go. All right, next. So we have side, 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 side. So I have 1 to 1 and 2 to 2. But we don't have any of these over here that just talk about, two sides. The only one that talks about all the sides, or only sides, is side, side, side. So in order to use that one, I would have to know, it'd have to be marked, not just look like it, because this looks congruent. It has to actually be marked. I'd have to see the 3 marks, the 3 tick marks on both of these. So because I don't see that mark, I'm going to say it's not congruent. It says not necessarily congruent. So it doesn't mean it's not congruent. What it means is I can't prove it because the markings aren't there. Okay, so this one is a little different, and I'll explain why. So this one shows you an angle, and this is the right angle mark, so we know they both equal the same thing. They're both 90s. And then we have another angle here, so we have an arc here, and then I can go over here and we have another arc. It doesn't look like I have any more markings, but they share this side exactly. So it goes from vertice to vertice. So if they share this side, that means that that side is congruent. ON is congruent to ON. It's congruent to itself. We call that reflex. So in this case, I do have a side congruent, even though it's not marked. It'd be weird if there was just one tick mark in here. You'd go, well, what is it congruent to? It's congruent to itself. That's why they didn't mark it. But we can clearly see that it starts at the same point here and it ends at the same point, which means that those are, in fact, the same length. So they are congruent. So I have angle, angle, side. And then I can do the same thing from the right angle on this one, angle, angle, side. So I can use angle, angle, side on this one. So I'm going to go down and choose angle, angle, side. And then we need to name it. So I have MNO. And it goes from right angle to 1 arc to no arc. So I want to do the same thing. Right angle, 1 arc to no arcs. So PON. PON, like that. All right. And then we have this bottom one here. So I have 1 arc to 1 arc, 1 tick mark to 1 tick mark, and then 2 arcs to 2 arcs. So I have what I need to do angle, side, angle. Or I might even have what I need to do angle, angle, side. Again, we need to make sure we check the order. So I have angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. So in this case, they both go in the correct order for angle, side, angle. So make sure both of them are in the correct order, because just because you have all the pieces doesn't necessarily mean that they're in order like that last one we had, where we had all the pieces, but they weren't in the correct order. All right, so we have UVW. So I go from no arc to 2 arcs. Sorry, no arc to 1 arc to 2 arcs. So I want to do the same thing. No arc, 1 arc, 2 arcs. So I want to go Y, X, Z, and click check. Yay. All right, we have 1 more of these. Okay, so this one we have angle, we have a side, and we have an angle. And now that we've gone through a couple of these, I'm not going to stay on it as long. We know that they match up. I can go angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. So I'm going to go ahead and go angle, side, angle, and then UVW. So I go from no arc to 1 arc to 2 arcs. No arc, 1 arc, 2 arcs. So I'm going to go X, Z, Y. I believe that's exactly the same one we just did. All right. So now down here, I'm going to say I have angle, angle, another angle, so only 1 arc on these 2, and then I have a side. So I can go angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side. And when I'm reading it, I want to make sure I'm reading it the same way. So I have 2 arcs, 1 arc, side, 2 arcs, 1 arc, side. So I just want to make sure they're in the same order, because if for some reason these arcs were flipped, that would actually change the triangle. It wouldn't be the same markings. So we want to make sure that the markings go in the same order. All right, so I have angle, angle, side, and then I have A, B, C. So I have 2 arcs, no arcs, 1 arc. 2 arcs, no arcs, 1 arc. So D, F, E. DFE. Okay, the last one here, so I have side to side, side to side, because I have 1 to 1, 2 to 2, but I don't have anything on that third side. Remember, don't assume that it's congruent because it looks congruent. If there's no markings and they're not shared, like on that one example, we can't say that they're congruent. So the only one on here that deals with only sides is side, side, side. I don't know what that third side is equal to. It could be, but we haven't gotten the marks. So we're going to say not necessarily congruent. All right, we finished another one.